Well, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, and it is the 8th of April. Your old friend Zeke here again, and I'm still in my morning clothes. Why? Because President Washington has passed away, and I am still in mourning over that man. Yes, I am. I feel like something's just lost. But time marches on. Now, I hope you all finished those quizzes that Mr. Johnson asked you to do, because he's going to be asking me about it. And I'm not so good with paperwork all the time. I've been working out on the farm again today, and I had to go and get all cleaned up, but I'm still in mourning. Yes, I am. All right, we're going to talk about President Thomas Jefferson. Now, he was elected in the year 1800, and he is one of the original Democratic Republicans, normally just called Republicans, but not related to the Republicans of today. Just because you got the name don't mean you're related to it, okay? Things have changed over the years. Many times they've changed back and forth and back and forth. You don't know. Even President Abraham Lincoln called himself a Republican. He was more like a Democrat. Who knows? Who knows? It's all politics, folks. It's politics. So does it really matter? To some people, I guess it really does. But to me, I'm just an American trying to get by. Yes, I am. And I stand on one thing, the Constitution, and what it says. Well, Thomas Jefferson was a strict constructionist. What does that mean? It means that he felt whatever the Constitution said, it meant. It meant that's the way it was supposed to be. I have a tendency to agree with him. Unlike Alexander Hamilton, who is a loose constructionist that believed we can tinker with that a little bit. Maybe it really means this, and maybe it really means that. No, don't. All right. So now, the election of 1800, Thomas Jefferson called it, this is important, so you better write this down someplace. He called it a revolution. Wait a minute, a revolution. The Revolution of 1800. Now, I remember the last revolution didn't go too well for the British. A lot of people died. Is Jefferson saying that people are going to die? No, 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 no. What does that word revolution mean? Change. This is going to be a change. It's going to be a revolution. So, from the Adams administration now to the Jefferson administration, there's going to be a change. I wonder if it's for the good. John Adams did a pretty good job. There was a few things that he could have maybe not have done, like the Sedition Acts. But that's all that now. Jefferson moves into the White House because guess what? It's totally done now. It's done. It's all finished. So he's in the White House? Yes, he is. Now, Jefferson, and I'm going to tell you a few things about him before we really get into a lot of things, okay? This peaceful revolution of 1800 proved to the world that this young republic, that's us, that's the United States, the US of A, could make political changes without any violence, without any killing. Very unusual for the time, because you know what happened in France? Boy, there was a lot of violence when things changed over, wasn't there? Wow. Even though Federalists were very troubled about losing the White House and the presidency, they had to go along with it. Now remember, before Mr. Adams left office, he appointed some judges to position. What were they called? Midnight judges. They were done at midnight. Midnight judges. So that way federalism could live on. Well, we'll see about that. Because Jefferson's not a real keen supporter of federalism. So, this was the first time in modern history that a political control of a country would pass from one political party to another, from the Federalists to the Democratic Republicans, known as now Republicans. First time. Remember what George Washington said about politics, about political parties? Beware of divisive political parties. Beware. Could ruin the country. Well, some cases, I think some of them would like to. But not while we're here. No way, folks. Not while you got Zeke standing here. And not while I got you. Listen to Zeke. Okay? You got to stand up for it. Right here. You stand up for this flag. A lot of people died for that flag and are still dying and serving for this flag. It's important. So, let me tell you a few fun facts about Thomas Jefferson. He was the first president to shake hands with somebody. What's so hard about that? Because people just didn't shake hands. That was an Indian custom, to shake hands like this, to make sure that nobody was wearing any kind of weapons under their coats. Most of the time, they bowed. And so when you met somebody, you bowed. Or even a short bow like this. Or like this. Which is still good. And you still should do that. It's okay to do this. Especially when there's a lady in the room, guys. Listen to me now. But he would greet people by shaking hands. Well, during this virus time, not a good idea, Mr. Jefferson. Even if you had gloves on. Distance. Got to stay back. They didn't worry about it then. Second thing was, he was the first president to have grandchildren born in the White House. In the White House. He was one of two presidents who signed the Declaration of Independence. Who was the other one? Hello? Who was the other one? John Adams. What about George Washington? Didn't he sign it? No. Washington was on the field. He was fighting. So John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, both signed the Declaration of Independence. When he was sworn in as president, he returned to his boarding house. Now, listen to this now. He returned to his boarding house where he was staying for dinner. Every seat was taken. As he looked up this way, looked down this way, there was no seat for him. No one stood up to offer him a seat. Now, come on now. This man has just become the president of the US of A. And as he walks in the room, no one stands. They don't give him a seat. After a while, the wife of a Kentucky senator, offers him her seat. President Jefferson declined immediately. No Southern gentleman would ever sit while a lady stands. None of you all should either, boys. When a lady's in the room, you stand up and let her have that seat. Hear me? That's the way it's supposed to be. Eventually, somebody got out of their seat. A man did. And let him have the seat. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Wow. Jefferson City, Missouri is named after Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson County in Ohio, there's Jeffersons all over the place. Jefferson City, in many states, named after Thomas Jefferson. So he must have done a few things right. Oh, we haven't even touched the surface of what this man's going to do. He's going to do some great things, okay? Some very, very great things. Now, Jefferson was the second cousin once removed from John Marshall. Who was John Marshall? Chief Justice. Chief Justice. Oh, my goodness. And they were on opposite sides of the political realm, okay? Opposite side. Now, that John Marshall, he was a character, boy. He really was. He wasn't a mean guy, but he was right to the books, right the way everything's supposed to be. So was Jefferson. So he was. But neither of them liked to lose, so there may be a little bit of problem there. But that's for later on. Jefferson's library had approximately 6,000 books. 6,000 now. He read them all. He read them all. Oh my goodness, I'm getting a headache right up here just thinking about all that reading. He read them all. And it would become the basis of the Library of Congress because he sold them all to them for $23,950. Why is that? Jefferson was broke? Yes, he was. Not totally. But he really needed the money. And guess what he did with it? He paid a few bills and he bought some more books. Yes, he did. He bought some more books. I've been to Monticello. That's his house. There are books piled up all over the place, and they're in the shelves too. He had a lot of books, folks. Rarely did you ever see Mr. Jefferson without a book in his hand. Rarely. One of his quotes, I cannot live without books. That's what he'd say. I cannot live without books. Jefferson kept a Mockingbird with him at all times in the White House. Not outside, inside. And he let the bird ride on his shoulder whenever possible. Isn't that something? Now, Mockingbird's about, yay big or so. You look it up. See if you can get a picture of one. Jefferson even trained him to take little bits of food right out of his mouth. Right out of his mouth. Just pick it right out of there. Would you do that? How many times you let your dog take something out of your mouth? Come on now. Come on. I know you have. Yes, you have. That's how you teach them to be gentle. You know that? Yes, sir. Now, when Jefferson went upstairs, the bird would not get on his shoulder. He would hop up the steps. Hop up the steps after him, one step at a time. Isn't that something? You got wings, buddy. You can fly. They want to fly. Want to hop up the steps. Wow. Never far from Jefferson's side. That bird was always there. Had the run of the place. Had the run of the place. Jefferson was the first president to be inaugurated in a new city called Washington, D.C., District of Columbia. He was inaugurated in Washington, D.C. Now, when he got inaugurated, folks, listen to this. I got to read this to you because I don't think you'd believe it. Jefferson walked to his inauguration wearing a simple gray homespun suit. The simplicity of the third president, though, was completely unintentional. Can't wear just a plain little suit, Mr. Jefferson? Now you got to realize President Jefferson liked style, and he liked the best of the best. He wore the plainclothes suit only because bad weather had delayed his arrival of a new $6,000 carriage. $6,000 now. Back in 1800 was a lot of money. And a very expensive velvet suit that he had. Didn't come. Wow. I thought Washington had some money. Well, he did. Washington was smart with his money. Jefferson, not a keeper. Not a keeper of money. Spender. Oh, well, he liked to spend. And he spent a lot. And it wasn't just on himself. It was on others. It was on others. He's very, very generous. Sometimes a little too generous. But let's go on. What else did he do? Have you ever heard of the exposition of Lewis and Clark? We're going to get into that. But they were some fellows that Jefferson sent out west, and they would send back artifacts they would find, and sometimes they'd send back live animals that they would find. And bears were brought back from that expedition. and they were displayed in cages on the White House lawn. And for years, the White House was sometimes referred to as the President's Bear Garden. How about that now? Could you imagine going to the White House and there's bears in cages there on the yard? Beware, there's bears. Don't feed. Don't feed nobody. Jefferson wrote his own epitaph for his gravestone. And what's an epitaph? It's what's written on your gravestone, okay? And his gravestone, you have to look this up. So I don't have any ways to get you a picture or anything like that. But you look it up. I've been there many times. It's very, very tall. And here's the things that he wrote on there. That he was the writer of the Virginia Laws for Religion. He was the founder of the Virginia University. Writer of the Declaration of Independence. Left something out there. Third President of the United States, not on there. Not there. It is not on there. I don't know why. Maybe he felt that it was too much. People elected him for that. The other things he did on his own. Yes, he did. But the people elected him to that position. And it was something that he took graciously. So you have to understand, Thomas Jefferson is a Southern gentleman at that. And he takes things very seriously. Very seriously. Let's go on. He once was given a 1,235-pound hunk of cheese. Hunk of cheese now. Giving us the term the big cheese. Oh, it was a big piece of cheese. 1,235 pounds of cheese. So when people came to the White House to visit, guess what you were taking home? A hunk of cheese. A little bit, maybe not all of it, but you were taking a big hunk of cheese home until it was gone. I'm not sure Jefferson really even liked cheese that much. But that's a lot of cheese. Hope it was good. When Thomas Jefferson became president in 1800, by 1801, only 20% of all the people in the United States were slaves. There were 5 million people in all. So out of 5 million, you do the math, 20% were slaves. Now that's something that Jefferson didn't like the idea of slavery, but he knew the implications of it. It's what ran the economy down south. It did. And was there slaves in the North? Yes, there was. Yes, there was still slaves in the North. There still was. Now, you remember that deal that was made in 1787, the Three-Fifths Compromise, that the government could not outlaw or tinker with slavery for 20 years? Well, by 1807, so a couple more years, maybe something would change. Maybe. But there was 20% of these people in the old US of A that were slaves. It's a sad thing. It's a sad thing, but it has to be done in the right way. So Jefferson would have a plan. We'll see if it gets implicated or implemented, I should say. Implemented. Now, Jefferson also did play the violin. I saw his violin. Very, very nice. And he taught himself how to play. And his sister Jane would sing. And when Jane passed away, he was devastated. He really was devastated. He really was. They were real close, brother and sister, very close. But he would often play that violin. Even when he was writing the Declaration of Independence, he took time to play the violin. How many of y'all play an instrument? You find a joy when you do? I do. I play the guitar. What? Mr. Johnson plays the guitar too? I know he does. Sometimes we play guitar together. So maybe we're going to have to bring that old toy out sometime and play around with it, huh? We could do that. I know a few songs. I'm sure you know a few songs. But you have plenty of time now to practice that instrument, as Jefferson had plenty of time to practice this instrument too. Right? You're right. Now, he also was the one that came up with the decimal system that we use in our money today, like $19.35. Little decimal point there. So Is there anything he didn't think of? Oh, there's a lot more things yet to do. He wrote over 20,000 letters in his lifetime. Over 20,000. That's not even including documents. He would eventually have a lot of those documents and some letters preserved, except for the letters that he sent back and forth to his wife, Martha. Well, what happened to those? He burned them. When Martha died, he burnt all those letters. Well, why would you do that? It's historical. Here's what he said. It's between Martha and myself, nobody else. Now, I believe there was a letter that did prevail. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up, but I believe there was one. But he burned all his letters to him and Martha had. That is a shame. We learn more about George or Thomas Jefferson that way if we had him, but them's personal, okay? Them's personal, and it's just like somebody reading your letters that you're sending to somebody. It's personal. So he burnt them. He also founded and he designed the University of Virginia. How about that? Guess what? It's still there. It is still there. All right? It is still there. And they are still using some of them same buildings. Now, they've added on to it quite a bit, but they're still using them same buildings. Wow. He was real proud of that. He had that written on his tombstone. Here's something he would do every day for nearly 60 years. He would take a cold foot bath every morning. What? Why would you do? Why would you want to do that? It woke him up. Yes, it did. He'd get out of bed, put his bare feet right in a tub of cold water. That'd wake him up. And then he would check the weather every day. Every day. Check the weather every single day. So did George Washington. Why would these men do this? Because they're farmers at heart. And farmers have to know what the weather's going to be. They have to know. So Jefferson would check the weather every single day after that cold foot bath. Ooh, it makes me shiver just thinking about it. He once ate a tomato in public just to prove to everybody that it was not poison. Now, who in the world thinks tomatoes are poison? A lot of people still did. Yes, they did. Because, the Indians would give the Spanish tomatoes. And some of them Spanish were starting to die, thinking that they're trying to poison us with these tomatoes. So what they did, they really did not like the Italians. They sent a lot of these tomato plants and seeds, I should say, over to Italy, thinking they'll get rid of those people without even have to fight them. They'll just all die. Well, you know what they did? They made some of the best sauce for pizzas and spaghetti and everything else you can think of. Lasagna. Oh, I'm getting hungry now. I haven't eaten yet today. Well, why were the Spanish dying? Because they were eating them tomatoes on lead plates. Lead poisoning. That's what was killing them. Lead poisoning, not the tomatoes. So that's why Jefferson ate a tomato and said, they're not poison, folks. They're good. They're real good. I'm glad he did that because I like tomatoes. I'm growing some right out here right now. Well, a little bit. They're not growing too fast right now. It's a little cold. Now, Jefferson owned about 200 slaves. Not always, but at one time he owned 200 slaves. A couple times he owned less than that. He owned about 10,000 acres. He had a lot going on there. Now, you're telling me that he wanted to get rid of slaves, but yet he had 200 slaves. Come on now, Zeke. Something's wrong here. I know. It was economics. It was economics. Jefferson needed those people to work the land. Well, he could have paid them. Could have. Yes, yes, he could have. That plantation he lived on was not just slaves working out in the fields. They did everything. They made everything from leather works to taking care of the horses to making nails. He had a nail factory going there now, okay? To working in the mills. They did everything. A lot of them didn't want to leave, but it would have really been nice to be paid and to be free. Jefferson was afraid if he freed them, they wouldn't come back. They wouldn't come back. It was a very rough time there. Now you got to remember, this is the 19th century. The 19th century. Things were a little different back then. So don't judge what we don't know. We know today we would never do that. But out of those 200 slaves, he did not take to beating them slaves. He did not take to having those slaves whipped. He was kind to them. And he gave them all a chance to learn to do what? Read and write. And to pick their vocation, their job on the plantation. Whatever they were best at, that's what they could do. So they would learn something. Because he knew there would come a time when they would be free and they had to be able to be in the community and be able to make a living on their own without anybody taking care of them. That's the rough part right there. Because there was nobody to take care of them if they were on their own but themselves. That's what we do, folks. That's what we do. You have to learn how to do something so that you don't become a burden on your neighbors. Now, among vegetables in Mr. Jefferson's garden was something called an English pea. You ever have an English pea? I've had a few. Considered to be his favorite, though. Now, he wrote down everything in that little garden book that he had. He actually has a little garden house that sits in the middle of the garden. I've been there. And he would sit in there and meditate and look around, see how everything's going, how everything's growing, what to take out, what to put in. And he studied how these peas grow. He grew 15 types of this English pea. 15 types. I thought there was only one. It's called a pea. But I guess there was 15, at least that he grew. And he would frequently jot down in his vegetable book, his garden book, his vegetable part, that happily noting peas would be able to come to table. So by staggering the planting of all these different peas, the 15 different types, he was able to eat them fresh from the garden from the middle of May to the middle of July. He always had fresh peas. He liked peas. Do you like peas? Go get you some. You can get you some. I don't know how fresh they'll be, but you can get you some. If you like peas, you can get some. I like peas. I really do. And my wife doesn't like peas too much. She should, because they're good. Yeah, you know what she used to do? She used to take them and put them underneath her plate when she was little, so her plate would sit like this. Yeah, she was hiding them. I know sometimes y'all like to shoot them at people or throw them this way. But you know what you should be doing? Putting them in here because they're good. So, on March 4th, 1801, Thomas Jefferson became the third president of these here U.S. of A., United States. Why March? Well, that's when they inaugurated people. What's the date they do it today? January 20th. January 20th, because now it's written in an amendment that has to be in January 20th. But it wasn't until March 1st of 1801 that he would become president of the United States. He wanted a more democratic government than there ever was before. More democratic government. And he promoted something called a laissez faire. Laissez faire. That's French, you know. If you don't know, it's laissez faire means French. Okay? And what that word means is let the people do as they choose. He wanted that approach to government. Let them do as they choose. Simplifying people, simplifying things. Let the people do what they want to do. Don't let the government tell everybody what to do. Now, you can only do that for so far. You can't let people just go off half willy-nilly. You need to have some kind of structure. Well, there's going to be some structure, but he's going to be a lot more here lenient. It's called simplified government. Simplified government, it's not a strong government like John Adams had, where if you talked about the president or the Congress or anything against their agenda, you got thrown in jail, buddy. Yeah, that's a strong government. That's a strong arm government is what it is. Jefferson's completely opposite. Remember the Revolution of 1800? It's going to be different. And you have a laissez-faire approach to government. That's something we're going to have to all think about. Now, here's the kind of man Jefferson was. When it comes to politics, he had a very thin skin. What does that mean? It means people say things about you, and you can either choose to take it to heart and feel all bad about it and get mad and go sulk someplace. No. He did do that. He didn't like people not liking him, and he didn't like people not saying bad things about him. He was very thin-skinned. When you're in politics, you got to be tough. You've got to be tough. Because people are going to say things about you all the time. Even when you do things right, they want to say things about you. They just do. So, see what I'm doing there? I'm brushing off the dust. I'm brushing it off because it doesn't really matter. Say all the bad things, they have to have an agenda. So, he hated crowds. He avoided making any kind of speeches. How'd you ever become president? He just was not a John Adams. And he was not a George Washington. He was Thomas Jefferson. He was somebody that was totally different. He was a very kind person. Very, very kind. Very soft-spoken person, too. Now, he did say something that was just extraordinary. I think it was. I mean, this goes with my politics, hopefully your politics, because it's America's politics. He says this, that all too will bear in mind the sacred principle that the minority possesses their equal rights, which equal law must protect. Minorities. Law must protect them because they have equal rights. But let me go on. Let us then, fellow citizens, unite with one heart, with one mind, because we are all Republicans and we are all Federalists. What's he saying? We are all Americans. That's right. Across the aisle. Congress is not Democratic, Republican today. They should be American today, like Jefferson wants it to be. He said, we are not all Democrats. We are all Democrats. We are not just all Federalists. We are Federalists. We are Democrats and we are Federalists. We are Americans. That's what he's trying to say. So, he also writes the notes on Virginia in 1783. He writes these notes on Virginia freedoms, and he's noted for that. So he is a writer. He is a writer and a thinker. Now, can he be a doer? Oh, he's a doer. Yes, he is. He's a doer. So let's see what he does, okay? And I'm looking at my notes. I hope you all have your notes, Because if I don't have notes, old Zeke, I forget things. Matter of fact, you know what? I probably should stop right here and wait until Thursday or Friday because I got 35 minutes already and I want to stop. You know why? Because y'all are getting tired of me. So I want you to stay safe. I want you to protect yourselves from coughing, shaking hands, even though Thomas Jefferson did that. And I want you to be kind to people. Be kind during this time. Get to know your family all over again, okay? Because this is going to be over soon. We're all in this together. So I'll see y'all later. Till next time.